Welcome back to One on One with Mr. U. Of course, I am your host, Mr. U. In studio with us, Dan Clouser, author, blogger, podcast host, speaker. He's a consultant too. He does a lot of stuff and probably more stuff than that. But Dan, good to have you in the house, man. How are you, brother?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
Fantastic, man. Fantastic. As customary, we had a fantastic pre-interview chat, but customarily, I always ask our guests, first question out of the chute. What was your childhood like, man? Give us some insight into what it was like for young Daniel.
I think I had a great childhood. I mean, my parents did get divorced when I was in fourth grade, but even with that, I had an absolutely great childhood. Lived with my mom alone for 4 years in Florida, and then I did get into some trouble, and she decided to send me back to Pennsylvania and finish out my teenage years and high school years with my dad, which was probably a decision that ended up saving my life, to be quite honest with you. But I mean, I had a great childhood, was able to spend a lot of time with my family, and was very independent once I got to my dad. Once I turned 16, he was an over-the-road trucker, so we were kind of more like roommates than father and son. When I turned 16 and got my driver's license, I'd see him on a Sunday. We'd go shopping, make sure I had enough meals and food for the week, and I'd see him again on Friday. And I got myself to sports practices and school and all that stuff on my own. And nowadays, people would think that's crazy, but I am so grateful for that early independence and kind of learning how to take care of myself at a young age.
That's not crazy. I was a latchkey kid. I had my own key when I was like 11 or 12. I was kind of rolling. I was trustworthy with it, but to me, I thought everybody was doing it.
Yeah.
So that's not whatsoever. I mean, 16, some people are driving, so it's like that's not abnormal at all. I don't know what's going on out here that you're seeing, but no, that's very, very normal. If any of you guys that are watching and listening are interested in checking out Dan's work, his blogs, his podcasts, his books, scheduled speaking engagements with him, journeyofmymotherson.com is where you can find that information. We'll talk about it again before the end of the show, but journeyofmymotherson.com. Check it out. So you do a lot of stuff, man. I'm not even sure where to start because there's so much stuff that you are involved with. But I guess I'll go ahead and jump into the elephant in the room. One of the things that I thought was really interesting about your story is that you kind of live a no-regret RV lifestyle.
Yes,
it's something
sir.
My wife and I, we talked about it, and we've had fun with the idea of it. I think there's certain parts of it that kind of make us thought, maybe that wouldn't work for us. You and I had discussed a couple of those finer points, but kind of demystify the RV lifestyle for us. But first, tell us why you even started doing that, what led to it, and then kind of demystify what it's like to live that kind of lifestyle, if you can. Go ahead.
So, I mean, what led to it? I mean, this isn't something that was like a dream of mine my entire life. Like we've talked to some friends of ours who are full-timers who are like, oh, we just always loved travel. We wanted to get out on the road. We've had a camper and all that sort of stuff. This was never my dream. But back in 2019, I took 2 solo trips. One to Dallas, Texas, from Pennsylvania, where we're originally from, to Dallas, Texas. Went home through Louisiana, which is not a direct route back to Pennsylvania from Dallas. And then a couple months later, I took another solo trip from Pennsylvania down to Orlando, Florida, stopped in Atlanta to see one of my old players. I'd coached baseball for 30 years. I ran a youth nonprofit sports organization. I absolutely loved what I did. If you would have talked to me in 2018, I would tell you I'd probably drop dead at our sports complex that we ran. Because I just loved doing it that much. I had published my first book in 2012, and during the time of those 2 road trips, I was in the process of adding chapters to that book, The Beauty of a Diamond Through the Eyes of a Coach. I got back from those 2 road trips and had written like I hadn't written before, and kind of had this aha moment, voice of God, whatever it was, telling me it was time to end this chapter of what I was doing, running this youth sports nonprofit organization, and start writing more and hit the road and travel. And, the title of my podcast, The Journey of My Mother's Son, that is inspired by my mom. She took an old 67 Valiant back in the 80s, took the back seat out of it, put a sheet of plywood in there and a mattress, and kind of turned it into a quasi RV and traveled all around the country solo. I did one leg of that trip with her from Pennsylvania to Florida between my junior and senior year of high school. And the other thing that hit me on those 2 road trips was that I kind of finally figured out why my mom did what she did, because there was this incredible sense of peace and serenity on those 2 trips. I'd taken my time on those 2 trips, which wasn't something I was used to doing. I was always, we did a lot of traveling in our organization, but there was always a strict schedule to keep, so I'd be on a bus with, anywhere from 1 team of teenage baseball players to 3 teams of teenage baseball players. Sometimes, we did 1 trip where we had 3 buses because we had 9 teams that were going on a trip. So it was always very regimented, where we had to be at, the breakfast spot at a certain time. We had 45 minutes for the kids to eat and get back on the bus. And then we had to get to the complex, so it was all very regimented. So taking my time and enjoying the journey was not part of that lifestyle whatsoever. So when I did take the time on those 2 trips, it just really hit me. And then I had this inspiration to write when I got back. I'd never owned an RV prior to that, and I fought it at first. I thought, now, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm changing the lives of kids in a positive way. I get to see some of my players when they come back. But then finally I bought into it. I was like, all right, we'll do this. We'll start speaking more. We'll start writing more, and we'll sell the house and travel. Wow. I ran the idea by my wife. She thought I had completely lost my mind. She did not want anything to do with it. She was like, hey, that was your mom's story. That's not our story. Like we're doing okay right now. Although she was also going through some stuff professionally at her employer at the time. And, after a couple weeks of kind of gentle nudges, maybe a little more than gentle nudges at times, she came home frustrated after a day at work and said, you know what, I think this is a sign I'm in. Let's go ahead and do this. So we put the plans in motion. Let my board know that 2019 would be my last year with the organization, and set out to put this thing together. And then obviously, 2020 threw its own curveballs at us. The day we were buying our RV was the same day the governor of Pennsylvania was issuing shutdown orders. We were in the process of talking to our real estate agent about taking our house off the market. So our plan was never to have a mortgage payment, an RV payment, and an RV sitting in the yard kind of indefinitely, because we had no idea what was going on. But it also felt right that day we're sitting in there in the RV dealership, kind of like with all this uncertainty, like, no, this is the right thing. Let's keep moving forward. So we got the RV. It sat in the yard for a while. Once the real estate market opened up again in Pennsylvania, it got the house back on the market, and within 10 days we had a sales agreement. And on August 14th of 2020, we hit the road, and we haven't looked back since.
Oh, I love this. I got so many questions. So let's see where we kind of can start. I want to use our time wisely because I want to run out of time and not ask you all of this stuff. It's really good stuff, though. You did so many awesome things in this short synopsis you gave us here. I mean, you were teaching kids something that was valuable, leadership skills, life lessons through sports and community and stuff. And it was like, when you're doing that kind of work, I think we idealize it as, the thing, like, this is why I'm here.
Yeah.
To have to leave the comfort zone of that is so, I can't imagine how that feels. And you add your dynamic of your mom passing and the things that you learned about her life and the journey and how that kind of played into what you and your wife are doing now. There's just so much there. So I don't know how we get into all of that stuff, but kind of talk to us about some of the ins and the outs of the RV life. Because I feel like it helped me, because I know Mark and I have discussed it. We talked about it. I'm not sure we're really as serious as you guys were about it, but it's something that we discuss from time to time. But I'm curious about one thing. Firstly, how did you handle that? What was it like during COVID year? Because the world was crazy at that point. How were you guys handling the fact that you were moving around to different places with different restrictions and different rules, different cities and states, etc.? That's my first question for you. And the second one is kind of just share some of the ins and outs of RV life for those that might be considering it.
Yeah. So the first year was, I don't know if a challenge is a right word, but it was different because, like you said, each state had their own regulations. Like in the fall of 2020, we went up into Vermont, and at that time in Vermont, well, you needed to wear a mask everywhere, not just inside. So so we were always kind of trying to, Google and check like what is each state's restriction, because then you get back into New Hampshire and you needed the mask inside, not outside, that sort of stuff. So just kind of keeping on our toes, at that time period was, kept things interesting, let's say, because yeah, we were on the move, and each spot we got to, there were, a different set of, restrictions and rules that had to be done.
Yeah.
The one thing that it cut down on a little bit, because the great part of the RV lifestyle is just the community that is
Okay.
here. People that you don't know, that you have a conversation with just out of the blue, and you find yourself talking to them for 10, 15 minutes. I mean, I'm very introverted by nature, but I've become very much extroverted since we've been traveling. Like I can walk up and talk to a stranger and have a conversation with them, and hear most of their life story and tell most of my life story in a short period of time, and that was never me before.
It's
um,
pretty cool.
so that's one thing that's cool. Um, and that was a little bit ratcheted back during COVID, where people, even in the campground, still kind of, kept their distance a bit. But there was still a sense of community. I mean, I remember a distinct story when we were in Vermont. We don't tow a vehicle, but we were in Vermont. We got there. We thought we were going to get some stuff at the camp store when we got to the campground. However, we didn't know, it wasn't on the website, that the camp store wasn't open because of COVID. So we were kind of
Oh,
short on supplies. We were only there for 3 nights, but our neighbors got wind that, that we weren't towing a vehicle. And, my wife and I are sitting in the RV one afternoon, and we get a knock on the door, and it's our neighbors who we hadn't met yet at this point. And they were like, "Hey, we're running into town. We saw you guys don't have a vehicle. Do you need anything?" And we were like, "Actually, we do. We need some milk and some eggs, some bread." So, so they ran into town. I think they even picked up some firewood for us. They got back. We paid them. And then later that night, we stood around a fire and talked for a little bit, and just had a great conversation with them. Now, as far as adjusting to the RV lifestyle itself, again, the community is great. So anytime you need help, there's going to be somebody who's willing to help you out. I am not the handiest guy in the world, possibly one of the least handiest guys in the world, but yet, yesterday I find myself crawling on the floor and replacing our CO2 and propane detector. I've replaced our water pump in the RV with the help of some other full-time RVers when we were on a volunteer project, which again was not something I would ever, find myself doing. YouTube's a great resource when it comes to little, ins and outs of repairing stuff. So, people have reservations, I say just take the jump, man, because there are so many resources nowadays, and so many people who are going to be willing to help you on this journey if something goes wrong. I mean, even yesterday, I was riding my bike back from the grocery store. We're doing a work camping gig in Hershey, Pennsylvania for the summer. So I'm riding my bike back from the grocery store, have a blowout on my tire, and I have probably 30 pounds of groceries on my back rack. Luckily, I got into the campground before the tire blew. So I'm kind of, you know, trying to keep the rear of the bike as I'm pushing it back to our campsite. And two of our friends that we're work camping with here, loaded the bike up in the back of a golf cart trailer and got it back to our site. And then our other work camping neighbor, threw the bike into his pickup truck and took me up to a bike repair shop. I got the tire fixed. He left. I rode the bike back to the campground. And just people like that, they're just so willing to just give a hand and help out. So, the reservations of doing it, I tell everybody that asks the question, I'm like, just do it. You're going to meet so many incredible people. And you're going to figure it out as you go. I mean,
I
don't
love it,
get
man.
caught up in the details, I guess.
I love it. I love it. I do have some more questions in regards to
Yes.
this. I mean, because this is just such a, I still love the part about leaving your comfort zone for doing it. I don't want to understate that. That's huge. I mean, you basically sold everything you had. I don't know a lot of folks that would give stuff away, much less sell all that they have. So it's like it's powerful all by itself. I do have some more questions. So tell me what you guys were feeling when you were looking in the face of selling everything you had. What was your family's reaction to you guys' decision? Kind of get us behind the scenes briefly on what that was like. Then I have another question for you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we have 4 kids, so we wanted to tell them all at once. We didn't want to tell one because all of a sudden, so we had a little family gathering, and when we told them what we were doing, the reactions were everything from, man, this is so cool, to like, is this a midlife crisis? Have you guys lost your mind? But then probably within an hour of the initial, bomb drop, and, having some food, and, they were, all of them, every single one of them, even the ones that thought we were crazy, were walking around the house pointing to a table or a chair saying, hey, can I have that when you guys, instead of selling that, can that come to my house? So they adapted pretty well, So, but we still have some kids who they're like, so how long are you guys going to be doing this for? And we're like, hey, as long as we can, as long as we're healthy. Life is short. So we have no end plan. We're going to do it as long as we possibly can. And
they didn't go with you guys then. They didn't go with you.
No, they're all grown.
Didn't go with you then.
No, yeah, they're all grown.
Okay.
We got grandkids as well now at this point. So yeah, they were all grown out of the house. But
wow.
As far as our feelings selling our stuff, it was very liberating at times. Which is, again, is something I would have never guessed. I mean, I had a whole basement man cave. I'm a huge Red Sox fan, so I had all kinds of Red Sox memorabilia, signed baseballs. I know the New York guy doesn't want to hear that, but
no, I beat us up last week.
So I had all kinds of memorabilia, and that was the stuff I thought I would have the most toughest time getting rid of. But I didn't. It was very liberating. I distinctly remember a time my wife was walking up from the basement during that clean out period. And she looked at me and she's like, man, how did we get so much crap? I mean, we've been in our house for 20 years. Like, you just accumulate, society tells us we're just supposed to be consumers, go out and buy. And, it was really liberating to be able to let go of some of that stuff. That probably my wife's toughest adjustment is she loves baking, and our RV stove and oven is very small. So that's probably her biggest adjustment even now, is not being able to bake the way she used to. But anytime we get back to one of our kids' houses, I know, we're probably going to add, 5 to 10 pounds, because she finds herself in there taking advantage of that oven and baking everything that she couldn't bake while we were out on the road by ourselves.
Oh, goodness.
Time.
Somebody invented that, boy, for the RV community. They're gonna make a ton. Well, I got plenty more RV questions. I mean, the whole episode is going to be about that, because I think it's so fascinating. I have a question that probably nobody in the world wants to ask, or they even care about. Just me. What do RVers do for vacation? You guys are driving around kind of at your own whim, traveling the country, seeing the world. Do you guys need a vacation? And if you do, what do you do? Where do you go?
I wouldn't say we actually need a vacation, because that's the beauty of it. We're kind of always home, but we're also always on vacation. I mean, like I said, we're doing this work camping gig in Hershey. We're actually off next week from working and going to a different amusement park. That's kind of a vacation. I mean, I do a lot of book signings as we're traveling, but we try to mix in some sightseeing, in the quote unquote work as well.
I love it.
So I don't know that we need a vacation, because we're always, we kind of can set our own schedule. So we really created a great balance of mixing in the work, the book signings and doing the podcast and that sort of stuff, along with, making sure we see a national park along our way, or, stopping to see something that we want to check out, or riding our bikes through Pigeon Forge on Mother's Day or something like that. So we really have created the balance where it's a great, I guess the one quote unquote vacation we have is we do try to spend a month in Galveston, Texas on the beach every year. We've been doing that now for, I think, for an entire month, the past 2 years. We would go down there for maybe a week or so prior to that, because it's just a cool spot. I find myself able to write a lot more when we're in Galveston near the beach for whatever reason. So again, even that's maybe kind of a reset where, I'm able to catch up on writing and record some shows and do some stuff like that and enjoy the beach too.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, man. Some friends of ours are stopping by to say hello to you, Dan. The Herb and Watch podcast. These guys do sports very, very well, college and pro football, even some basketball, and they're on every last time I checked, they were on every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. They got a fantastic show. Thanks for jumping in, guys. Appreciate you and love you so much, man. Have a great day, guys, and thanks for jumping in. What's the most challenging thing that you've experienced, Dan, in your RV journey? I asked you about, during our pre-interview, I asked you about storms and how you guys manage that. But what would you say is the most challenging thing or things that you and your wife have encountered in your RV journey?
Probably the most challenging is, finding spots to get service done on the RV at times. There's a lot of service places out there. They're not all great. So you really got to do some research. And we've been fortunate enough that, with Google reviews and reading stuff about them, where we've, been able to get some spots for our service. We get back to Pennsylvania as often as we can. So we go back to our original dealership here in Pennsylvania that has a great service department to try to get as much service done as we can, when we're in the area. And then a lot of that, man, is luck of the draw. When we first got here to Hershey, we had a little roof leak, and I couldn't wait to get it to our dealership, because it seems like once we got to Pennsylvania, it just turned into London all of a sudden, and it's rained almost every day. So, a roof leak with 5 days a week of rain wasn't a good thing, and stumbled across a mobile RV guy who has been an absolute godsend. We're probably going to use him for some other smaller things while we're here in the area. But that's probably the biggest challenge, is just really, making sure when we need service, we find a good reputable spot. And then when we do, like, we make note of it. Like, we found a spot in Washington when we were on our way up to Alaska last year, and we hit that same spot on the way back from Alaska because they did such a good job the first time around, So that's probably the biggest challenge that I can think of, is just making sure we're finding good, reputable service places along our travel.
Okay, that sounds pretty cool, man. This is a fascinating lifestyle. I'm like, I feel like it's so free and so liberating. I'm like, is this a real thing? I know I was telling you a question during our pre-interview. I'm like, this just sounds crazy. I mean, I talked about it, and we kind of idealized it and fantasized, but like, it's just like a reality, and you bring it to life for us, man. So I appreciate it, man. I only have a few more questions for you before we close the show out. Buddy of mine, I want to ask you a question about your life. When you're traveling, can you park almost anywhere, or do you have to have a specific RV park to park? How would you answer that, man?
So we do we do park. We use Cracker Barrel parking lots. We use an app.
Why those?
Because they allow overnight parking. So we have an app called RV Parky, and that shows you places that are not just RV parks or campgrounds. So Cracker Barrels, I would say 90% of them allow you to park overnight in their parking lot. And the great thing there is you're either going to have a good breakfast or a good dinner, depending on when we get there. So that's always something. We will park in
incredible.
We will park in Walmarts occasionally, although there's more and more Walmarts that don't allow you to park in their parking lot overnight.
Really?
Yeah, which is a little bit of a bummer. We've stayed overnight in Cabela's and Bass Pros in the past, and just regular rest areas. When we were up in Alaska and Canada last year, like, there's just a ton of just random kind of pullouts along the side of the road that you can stay in overnight. So we did a lot of that last year. So, we do, like when I'm doing a book signing, we may only be in an RV park once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, just to kind of catch up, you know, get laundry caught up, get to a spot where we can empty our tanks and fill our tanks up again for, the next, um, stint that will be, what they call boondocking in the RV world is when you're, just parking and not staying in an actual place with hookups and that sort of stuff.
Gotcha.
Um, so yeah, so we mix it up, and like if we have a long travel day, we're not looking for an RV park. 'Cause we don't like when we get to an RV park, we want to spend at least 2 nights there. Because just the going through the process of hooking up your tanks and your electric and all that sort of stuff, for me to do that one day and have to unhook the next, it's just, in my opinion, my personal opinion, it's a hassle. Like I want to be there at least 2 nights and have one day to just kind of relax and not do anything. So if we're on the move and we're just doing a one night stay, it's going to be a Cracker Barrel, Walmart, Cabela's, whatever we can find through that RV Parky app that we use.
All right. This is fascinating to me. Okay. So quick question. I want to get to my last few questions before we have to close out. But quick question, real quick. You may have already answered this, but I might have missed it. You guys have a directory or some kind of a community guide to know where these places are, so that way you won't have to figure it out by Google only. Do you guys have that situation set up out there?
Yeah. So with that app RV Parky, and then we also use an app called RV Life to look for actual campgrounds. And then a lot of it we'll also find word of mouth. This community that we've built of finding other full-time RVers, like we'll see them post like, oh, here's this great spot we were at, in Texas or in, wherever, Tennessee, you name it. And, we'll kind of make a mental note of it. Like, hey, when we get in the area, we want to go to the spot where John and Karen stayed. So there's that as well. But yeah, RV Life is the one we use mostly to find campgrounds, and RV Parky is the one we use mostly to find, quote unquote, boondocking spots.
I love it. Dan, give me one compelling story that you guys have experienced on your RV journey. Just one compelling story that kind of made it all worthwhile. Like, this is what it's all about.
It's so tough to come up with one story. So I'll just kind of throw them all together and just say the community that we built. The community that we built, the story of constantly being able to run into other nomad friends throughout the country. Just seeing where they're at and say, hey, we're not that far. Let's connect. Let's have dinner. Let's have lunch. Let's just get together and hang out. So just the building of that community is really so cool. I mean, it's like, we live in this nationwide neighborhood of friends that we still get to see and cross paths with. Even just this year alone, we've probably seen a half a dozen, if not more, of our other full-time friends that, were close to us, were in the area, and we were able to connect with and have fun and hang out and share stories. So it's kind of a big ball of stories, not just one particular compelling story. It's that community that we've built.
I get you, man. I love that, man. This is I find this fascinating. I don't even know why. I just find this completely fascinating, man. Next to last question, then we're gonna go ahead and close out. So we did discuss this a little bit, but I want to see if your answers change a little bit. If the RV journey had to come to an end, not because of your life ending, but because you got a directive from God saying, you know what, it's time for you to settle in this place. I got to work for you here. If you had your choice, where would you want to continue to live? I guess your ideal place for your mission to continue, but at a central location. I forgot what your answer was, but where would you want to be?
It would probably be Galveston, Texas.
I'm hearing so much about that place, man. I'm hearing a lot of things about it.
Yeah, my wife and I, a couple years ago, she'd actually mentioned it when we were there, on one of our monthly stops. And she's like, if we settle down, I think this would be the spot. Although, the one thing, we've never spent a summer in Galveston when it's like, 95 degrees and 94% humidity all the time. So I don't know that would be firm, but, off the cuff, I would probably say that. And who knows, that may change next week. But for now, I would say Galveston would be the one spot if we end up stopping to travel. And again, I I find inspiration and creativity there. So I think it would be a good spot for me to continue that. And there's also a very cool artsy vibe and artsy feel where I think I could fit in with, I've done some book signings outside of my grocery store program there, and they've been very successful. So, for those reasons, I think that might be a spot. And with the humidity in the summer, there's a big body of water right there that I could always jump into to stay cool. So
absolutely, and stay creative. And the beach has a fantastic way of helping you get those creative juices flowing. So I totally get that. I don't utilize it as much as I should where I live, but that's kind of on me. It's nobody else's fault but my own. But final question. And first off, this is a fantastic combo, man. Thanks for jumping in here and doing this and sharing your life with us, man. For all you guys that are wanting to follow Dan's blogs, his podcast, Journey of My Mother's Son, is schedule a speaking engagement where he can talk to you and your community about what he's doing in his books. journeyofmymotherson.com is where you can find that. Dan, if you don't mind, once we're done with the show and we go offline on our YouTube channel, I think you already had the link already, but where the episode is that you're on today, in the comment section, drop your links in there so that people can find you, find your work very easily. Appreciate you doing that if you don't mind, man. But final question for you, and then we'll get out of here. If you weren't in your nonprofit work, you weren't authoring books, no speaking engagements, everything that you've already done is off the table. What do you think you'd be doing with your life?
Well, I wasn't good enough, but I'd like to say I would have been a Major League Baseball player. But I think that would be off the table as well. But
what position?
Catcher.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, in reality, I knew this question was coming. But in retrospect, I like to think to myself that, everything in life happens for a reason. So I think the way my life has unfolded is exactly the way it was, warts and all, just the way it was supposed to happen. So I hate to think of what ifs, so had I been talented enough, I would have loved to play Major League Baseball, but I know that would have never happened. So maybe I did go to school to become a recording engineer and a record producer.
Okay.
That didn't happen. So maybe I would have followed that path if I didn't go down the path that I did.
I wanted to play baseball too, so that's one of mine. My answer to that question is multiple things. I can think of quite a few. Baseball is my first sports love, so I wanted to be a Yankee my entire life. So that was definitely my thing too. But Dan, this has been fantastic, man. Thank you again for jumping in here and sharing about your RV lifestyle. When you got new books coming out or anything coming up, man, by all means, jump back in. Love to talk to you again and get some updates from you on what's going on where you are. Also include pictures of Galveston next time you come back on the show. All right. Absolutely. I want to see it. I've been hearing about it, but I'm not seeing it. I need to see it, Dan. So I want to visualize it. But thank you again for doing this, man. It's been fantastic, brother. Any closing thoughts for our listeners and viewers before we get out of here?
Closing thoughts are just, it's never too late in your life to change directions. Number one, don't ever think I'm in my 50s, I'm in my 60s, I'm in whatever I'm in. You can always change directions whenever you want to change directions. And instead of trying to talk yourself out of doing something, just talk yourself into doing it and take the leap.
I love it, brother. Thanks again for jumping in here. And for all our viewers and listeners and our commenters, thank you again. Listen to the show. Please like, share, and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Of course, on Apple Podcasts, if you're just listening to us as well. Thanks again for all your support. Dan, Mr. U, we're out of here. Have a great day.